Hello. I love getting lost in a big historical story, and I feel like you need a good page length to get fully immersed in a certain period from the past, but I also want to be compelled all the way through. So I have picked out three historical novels that I found absolutely gripping, and they're also ones that I haven't heard too many readers discussing online, so I really want to highlight them as something special. And something that I so love about historical fiction is not only does it allow me to live through a certain period of the past, which obviously I'll never be able to actually experience, but it tips me off to certain historical events or people or periods of the past that I might not be that aware of before. And obviously, social attitudes were very different in distant history, but also there were instances of rebellion and kind of pushback to prejudice, and all of these books highlight these things as well. And so I found them to be such wonderful reading experiences. So the very first book I want to talk about is Cathedral by Ben Hopkins, and this story is obviously centered around a cathedral, as the title would lead you to expect. And it's a cathedral being constructed in a fictional German town over a long period of time from the 1200s to the 1300s. And when I go to different European cities and I see these giant cathedrals, I don't often think about how obviously these took a long period to construct. And this is what this novel shows the real difficulty because of practical issues and financial issues and political strife, that these cathedrals took a long time to construct. And it shows the lives of a number of different people involved around the construction of this cathedral, and follows the trajectory of their lives. And there are so many characters in this I grew to feel really attached to. And obviously, since this was in the distant past, life was very precarious at that time, and some characters don't make it and others go on to live a long life, and you never really know when you're gonna lose one of these characters that I grew really attached to. But also it's so fascinating amidst the stories of all of these characters, how this novel really charts a period of social change when in European cities it was moving from a kind of feudal system to a more capitalist system, and it really traces that in the movements of these characters and the changes in society over time, but also it highlights a lot of tensions that concerning sexism and homophobia and anti-Semitism. And it's really interesting how it shows how the mercantile trade worked, how there were kind of restrictions in Christians not being able to do business with Jewish people, but then some were able to find intermediaries to kind of get around this. And there are so many really fascinating cases in this story that show this kind of pushback to the strictures of the time. And if you were just reading a historical account of this period, you might not know about some of these instances of individual rebellion which were occurring. And I just found this so immersive and an absolutely wonderful reading experience. The Illumination of Ursula Flight by Anna Marie Crowhurst. And this novel begins in 1664 and follows a girl as she's narrating the story of her own life from her birth, then following throughout her life as she becomes a playwright. And she is born into very privileged circumstances, and she is highly educated, but when she comes of age, she is expected to marry a wealthy man, and she is forced to do so. And of course, she finds this very restrictive as she was planning to become a writer and a playwright, and it follows her not as she is trying to find love and the right man in her life, but to find fulfillment as a creative individual, and to really take advantage of her talent and her abilities, and the sly way that she finds to do this, while also having lots of fun when meeting people in the theater, and having sexual relations, and discovering her own sense of agency to live her most fulfilling life. And of course, we know that there must have been women that wanted to write at this period of time, but weren't really able to. And a fascinating example of this is the case of Margaret Cavendish. If you ever read her work, it is absolutely wild. Her novel, The Blazing World, is just such an imaginative feat, and I so appreciated how the author brings to life a figure like this, and shows the full complexity of her life, and not just in the text of the story, but also through different forms of writing to show the development of her creative ability. And finally, there is a novel that takes place around the same period of time, starting in the 1670s, but on the opposite side of the world, in Brazil, and it's Palmares by Gayl Jones. And this follows the life of a girl born into slavery on a plantation in Brazil, starting when she is 7 years old and following throughout her life. And when she, in her childhood, she hears tell of a city of escaped slaves called Palmares, and this is historical city and settlement that was real, and that was populated mainly by escaped slaves, but also by a number of indigenous people and people more on the margins of society. And it follows her throughout her life as eventually she leaves and goes to seek out this city of Palmares, and finds it, and meets a man there who she marries, but then they are separated, and she is sent on a quest to try to track him down and find him again. And it follows her encounters with many different individuals in Brazil at that time, and her interactions with them, and how this gives an insight into this confluence of cultures and people and changes that were occurring at the time. And something that I so loved about her character is her relationship with her grandmother. It is such a tender and loving relationship, and her grandmother is so eccentric and really fun to read about. But obviously this story deals with also the harsh realities of the time and the brutality of the slave trade, and it doesn't shrink away from portraying that. So I found it absolutely compelling all the way through, as I did all of these novels. So I would love to hear if you have read any of these books and what you think about them, or if you're interested in reading them now, or if you want to let me know about any other great historical fiction that you've loved. I would love to hear about that in the comments below. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.